Okay, so today we're just going to give you a quick lesson in sharpening knives. So a knife is basically your most important tool in the kitchen. So to have a good one is quite important, and to keep it sharp is even more important. So I've got my knife here, and as you can see, there's a fine edge on the base of it. The edge runs for probably about 1mm to 1.5 millimeters up the knife. And so that is what you have to think about when you're sharpening, what the angle is, and trying to work with it in that sense. So I've got here a stone. So there is a little misconception in cooking. A lot of people think that this item here, a steel, is what you use to sharpen a knife. So this isn't actually the case. What a steel does is it helps to keep the edge on a knife once it's sharp, but it won't actually sharpen a knife if the knife is blunt. It might give it a slight edge for a day or something, but it's not going to do any long-term sharpening. So what we need here for that is a stone. So I've just got an ordinary stone here. There's a lot of different ones out there these days. There's diamond stones. This is the sort of old school classical one that I tend to use. It does take a little bit longer, but I find the knife stays sharp for a longer time, and you're not taking too much of it off in one go. So what we need to do first is you always need to keep the stone wet or lubricated, in a sense that basically if you're running the knife on it dry, it's not going to do any good and it's going to do more damage to your knife. So what I've got in this cup here is I've got a mixture of just water and some dishwashing liquid, and that gives a bit of lubrication. And as you start, you have to pour it on a few times just to keep the moisture there. So I'll just pour a little bit over here, give it a good cover. And what we need to do is just make sure that we've got the angle of the knife at a slight angle, so we're sharpening the edge. So we don't want the edge to be too long and put the knife completely flat, and we don't want to raise it up too high and make the edge too short. So it needs to be just a slight angle. And then you just start by bringing the knife backward and forwards, so you're going along the edge of the blade. So more or less just trying to do the even amount on each side, making sure you're following the same angle on the edge. And then always to just keep adding a little more, particularly at the start. There's nothing worse cooking in a kitchen where there's no sharp knife. I always have a distinct memory of when I was about 21 and I came back from working in Europe to cook a Christmas dinner party at my mother's house for all my extended family, and I couldn't find a sharp knife in the place. I couldn't even cut a carrot with anything, so it can be quite a stressful experience if you're trying to cook with a blunt knife. And it's amazing how much time you'll save yourself with a sharp knife. A lot of people have concerns that they might cut themselves if they have a sharp knife. But actually having a cut with a sharp knife will do a lot less damage than if you cut yourself with a blunt knife. So there's no excuses. So just backwards and forwards. What happens here is you're slowly filing away very small fibres with a knife to create sort of a razor edge. And depending on the status of your knife, this process can take anywhere from 5 minutes right up to about 20 minutes if your knife really needs a lot of work. And basically the more time you spend on it doing a good job and getting a correct angle and a good edge on the knife, the longer it's going to stay sharp. I'm using my knives every day, and as long as I'm giving them a really good sharpen, really thorough sharpen, I won't generally need to sharpen them again for another 4 to 6 months, as long as I'm keeping the edge sharp with the steel at the same time. Depending on how keen you are, everyone has sort of different styles of chopping, and you often use a different area of the knife. Some people like to use the heel of the knife to chop a lot of things, whereas some people like to use more the nose of the knife. So you can also focus on one area of your knife, increasing the sharpness more than the other two. You probably don't need to worry too much about that at this stage. Just getting the knife sharp is the important thing. Okay, and depending on how much your knife is going to need, you can keep going in that manner. And at the end, what I do is I just generally make a couple of smooth passes on each side. And this just helps to get rid of any metal burrs that you might have at the edge. Sometimes if you've gone a bit longer on one side, you'll get a little burr rolling to the other side. So just by doing this right at the end, it just helps to remove any of that. And give the blade a little wipe. Always give the knife a really good clean before you use it, just to get any of the metal shavings off. And afterwards, just to fine tune the edge, and also to keep the edge, we just give it a little run on the steel. So to use one of these, you generally hold it at about a 45-degree angle, and then you're wanting to run the knife down each side. So you're trying to line it up so the angle would be hitting the edge of the steel. And so you just run it up to down each time. Like so. And then you can always just check just by gently bring the thumb onto the edge of the knife, and it should feel like a razor blade. So there's a quick lesson on how to sharpen your knife.